Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at some Beatles interviews and see what they think about each other after the Beatles breakup. So let's dive right in.
You know how many theories there are about why the Beatles broke up. I bet you, how many have you heard? 35?
One or two.
You got too rich, you got too isolated, you got too tired. Lennon got too radical. What's your version?
That we'd come full circle. It was actually kind of a 10-year period, the main thing. It was a surprisingly short time, really, I thought. But we started off in Liverpool, and we wanted to go and be famous, wanted to write a lot of songs and have a lot of success everywhere, which is basically everyone's aim. You know, any group starts up, that's pretty much what they all want. So we wanted to do that. Once we'd done that, and once we'd conquered places like North America and stuff like that, I think we began to feel that we'd done it, and that all we were now going to go into was just do it twice. And for the Beatles and the whole thing, I think people started to think, we don't really want to do that. And I think the other factor was that we were also getting to the age when most people leave the army and get married, or leave the club.
So when Paul says about they'd already done it all, he is really true. It is true. He obviously the Beatles were and still are very, very huge. I don't think there's ever been a band bigger than them as far as sales of records and stuff. And you have to realise that back in those days, when you were playing live, they didn't have big amps and all of this sort of thing. So it was very difficult for them to put on a show, very difficult for them to put on a concert. And if you look especially at something like Shea Stadium, you could barely hear the Beatles. So I can understand where it's coming from.
A collaborator as John.
But then he started saying those nasty things about you, that you'd become an Engelbert Humperdinck, that you were a bore.
It's true, yeah.
Did you ever reconcile?
Muzak, that was another.
Are you still a little hurt that you didn't get a chance to clean that up?
A little? You kidding? When someone like John Lennon says you're Muzak? Yeah, it was very hurtful. But one thing I knew about John was that he shot his mouth off very often about things. So that there was a point that, you know, and he deliberately wanted to say crummy things about me.
Why?
He was hurt. He later explained it by saying that I'd kind of hurt him over some things, and it was kind of bitchy. You know, he just had to do that, you know. It's fine. And at the time, I thought, well, I should really answer all of this. But I thought, no, it's really going to get crazy if I start answering him. Then we're going to be talking through newspapers at each other and really bitching, you know.
But now it's up presumably to what? To only Yoko Ono can tell you, oh no, John really liked you. I mean, that must feel very
no, I know
arm's
that anyway.
length.
No, I know that anyway. I say it doesn't mean I didn't get hurt when he said hurtful things about me.
See, the thing is when bands break up, people start getting their knives out. Oh, he didn't let me play a solo on this song, or he said that this lyric on this song was bad. And I think that's what happened with the Beatles. I mean, obviously, Paul went on to write some tremendous songs after the Beatles, really, really good songs. And so did John, obviously, and so did George as well. But they were obviously, it seems from watching Paul's reaction here, is that they're just gone in different directions musically. You know, they just had a different idea of what music was. Obviously, when they got together, it was all the rock and roll stuff that they were into. And over time, they've matured apart from each other musically. So now we're going to go on to John Lennon and an interview on the Dick Cavett show with him and Yoko. And let's see what he has to say.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because you know, Yoko, you've even been called the Dragon Lady, who
yes,
the lady who brought the Beatles apart and took them all
Well, she
apart.
took
I
them
have trouble
apart.
with English.
Can we please give her the credit for all the nice music that George made and Ringo made and Paul made and I've made since they broke up? If she did it.
And she's right, really good appreciate music.
It's true. And now,
It turned out all right, didn't it?
you turn, yeah.
Anyway,
But
no
you're aware
word.
of that. I mean, that the press always
yes,
saw
yes.
you as the wedge that was driven in.
The wedge.
I don't know how you can drive a wedge in 3 places or whatever, how many spaces there are between 4 people, but that was the. There are millions of girls who would love to have met, let alone married, one of the 4, any one of the 4 probably, but certainly a lot of them.
Well, I resent to think of him as just one of the 4, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, or any one of the 4, etc. Because I just met him as another artist and all that, and I didn't, you know, particularly realize that part of it, really.
You were a Beatles fan before, or would you say you were a Lennon fan before?
Neither.
Neither. Didn't care for
She didn't
either
really
of them?
know about us.
No,
The
I
only
really
name
didn't
she knew
know.
was Ringo, because it means apple in Japanese. That's all. Ringo means apple.
Ringo means apple.
Yeah.
Did you know that
So-
when you named your company Apple?
No, no.
Oh. It was just one of those happy accidents.
Just one of those happy apples, yes.
Happy applesauce. Right number of
Happy
syllables.
Christmas.
Ringo, if you spell it sideways, spells groin.
Yes. Star backwards is rats.
I know, and there are a lot of. Do you do those things too? I find that I'm
when I
always
go along the road in the car, I'm always doing the signpost backwards. Anyway, she didn't split the Beatles because how could one girl split the Beatles or one woman? You know, the Beatles were drifting apart on their own. You know.
I have to agree with John when he says that they were drifting apart. I really do. The thing is they got together. I think they were like early 20s, late teens, early 20s, from what I remember. I mean, I don't study all their personal lives. It's all about the music as far as I'm concerned. But they were going in different directions, and they changed. I mean, when I was 19 and I was 25, I was a different person. You know, when I was 19, I was out drinking or whatever else, and when I was 25, you know, I was off to education and doing something else. So we all change, and I think that's what happened with the Beatles. I don't think Yoko had anything to do with it, the change.
Can you remember when you realized that it was inevitable that you would split up?
No,
First,
no. It's
was
like
there anyone-
saying, you know,
Yeah.
did you remember falling in love? Not quite.
Yeah.
No. It just sort of happens.
How long was it fun?
Yeah, well, everything's fun off and on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose it could have gone on being fun off and on, or it could have gone worse, I don't know. It's just that when you grow up, you know, we don't want to be the crazy gang, which they might know over here, which is British, or the Marx Brothers, which is sort of being dragged on stage playing She Loves You when we've got, you know, asthma and tuberculosis, and when we're 50, you know. Here they are again, yesterday, all my troubles. So a long time ago, I said that I didn't want to be singing She Loves You when I'm 30. I said that when I was about 25 or something, which in a roundabout way meant that I wouldn't be doing whatever I was doing then, you know, at 30. Well, I was 30 last October, and that's about when my life changed, really.
Especially for John, I can say that he's at least sort of outgrown, you know, whatever they were in, you know. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's very difficult for artists who are so brilliant and talented to be together and do everything together, you know. I mean, just impossible almost. So whatever they were doing was almost miraculous, you know, that they were together.
Sometimes it is better to break up and to do different things than to be about. I mean, you do get legacy bands that still go on, probably beyond what they should do, really, if I'm honest. And you get a lot of bands that have, where it's not even the band that they're supposedly representing. You know, they've changed lots of members and there's not even an original member left. I mean, that does happen. So we're going to watch an interview by the same guy, Dick Cavett Show. It's obviously stamped in the bottom for you. But we're going to see what George has to say about everything. Let's have a listen.
And then, well, before we get to that, though, since we may run out,
let's get to something else.
When you, if you and John and Yoko do meet, though, you're not really gritting your teeth.
No, we're good friends.
Yeah. Well, all of that about her being the problem with the group, is that slightly silly that one woman could be so much of a problem?
No, the group had problems long before Yoko came along. Mm-hmm. Many problems, folks.
Can you remember who was the first to say, you know, I bet we'll break up one day, that this won't go on, that this is sort of a dream, that we can't all stick together?
I don't really remember anything about the Beatle days. It seems like a sort of, previous incarnation when I think about it.
And a long time ago, like another life.
Yeah.
Do you regret any of it?
No, don't regret really anything,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what happened and it was good, it was good, but it was also good to carry on, do something else. In fact, it was a relief.
Sometimes they say
some people can't understand that, because Beatles was such a big deal. They can't understand why we should actually enjoy splitting up. But there's a time, when people grow up and they leave home or whatever they do, and they go for a change, and it was really time for a change.
Don't you think a lot of people just envied the idea of being world celebrities, though? And being
some people, would go on and on forever, singing the same tune and playing the same gig if they were making some money,
Yeah.
But I think we'd all rather give that up and try going on our own and try doing something we really want to do. And if we don't make it, then hard luck. But as it happens, we've all got such a lot of goodwill hanging over from being Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably wouldn't have me on the show if I hadn't have been one. Let's face it.
No, you wouldn't get here on looks alone.
When he says about a previous incarnation, I kind of understand what he's saying, and I think for the older members of the audience, we can all, when you get to a certain age, I'm in my 40s, for any of those who want to know, I'm in my 40s, and you do get to a stage where they're kind of like eras. They're like eras. This is my student era. This is my rebellious era or whatever. And you do have eras in life. And if you're young, you've got that to come. And if you're old, you know what I'm talking about. And when George says that he doesn't really remember a lot of it, I think they had a lot of stuff going on. And when he says that there was problems before Yoko came along, I think that was a lot of things. I think obviously writing music and the fact that it was such a John and Paul show more than George, and George's music was often pushed to the side sometimes. But I think also they'd grown up and they wanted to do their own things. They'd grown apart to some degree, or definitely musically. And the thing is, when you're a band like the Beatles, it becomes a business. Whether you want it to be a business or you don't want it to be a business, it's a business. And after Brian Epstein passed, they didn't know what they were doing. All they'd ever known was to write music. They didn't know anything else. And they got in Alan Klein, who unfortunately ripped them off, if I'm honest. I think it's more of just what I said, that they wanted to do their own thing. When you've been something for so long, you might have been in a club, or you might have had a partner and it didn't work out. Sometimes things are so bad between you, or maybe it's not so bad, but it's not so good either. And it's kind of a relief when it's over and you can go and move on to the next stage of your life. But now we're going to continue with Ringo talking about crafting songs with Lennon and McCartney.
The word I always got was that Paul was not open to suggestion about the music, but John was. John was more open to, if you said, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, he would listen. Paul was more exacting. He knew exactly what he wanted.
We have to thank Paul for the amount of music we put out, because he's the workaholic.
Right.
John and I would be sitting in the garden and the phone would ring and we'd say, we know it's him. We just knew by the ring. He wants to go to work.
Yeah.
Hey, should we go in the studio, lads?
Right.
And that's what we do.
So he was the motivating force.
He was.
Right.
Yeah.
This song, I Want to Be Your Man, which you, of course, sing on.
I wanna be your lover,
Beautiful.
I wanna be your man.
The Beatles originally gave this song to the Rolling Stones.
Rolling Stones, yeah.
I don't understand that. I thought they were your rivals. Why would they give that song?
I think that was just press. I never felt we were big rivals. You know, we were the Beatles. They were the Rolling Stones.
Do you feel that they always reacted to what you guys were doing?
No, I think Andrew Loog Oldham set this like battle scene with the press, not us.
When
Keith came to my birthday here at Radio City a few years ago. You know, if we meet up, we had dinner in L.A., Ronnie was there.
Everybody was friends.
Everybody was friends.
It wasn't a rivalry.
And they gave them that song, and then, you know, we need a song for Ringo. I'll let him do that.
What do they mean by that? They need a song for Ringo. How do they
because I had one on each record.
I know.
Because with them, I mean, they were writing them and doing them. So I just got one song.
But how do you know that I Want to Be Your Man is a Ringo song? Who decides that?
If I do it, it's a Ringo song.
Right.
Because it's the way I do it and the way we did it.
Do the guys come to you and say, does John say, hey, Ringo, this is your song for the album. We hear your voice on this?
No, he said, you're doing that.
You're right. And when you have to
no,
sing...
he never said it like that.
It did seem that in the very early, continuing on from what Ringo's just said then about Paul wanting being the reason why they ended up having such an output, I think that when John had proved to himself that he could make it in the music business, I think he was quite happy. He was the lead. I think he was the leader to begin with in the early stage of the Beatles, and I think in the mid to late it started to change and be more Paul. Because Paul's a workaholic. He really likes to make music. It's not only how he makes his living, but I think it's how he lives his life, really. And that's just a demonstration of how, you know, I mean, I'm glad that Paul was on the phone, ringing him up, making the suggestion of making another record, because we've got so many great records out of it. Yeah, the whole rivalry thing between the Beatles and the Rolling Stones was completely manufactured. I mean, Ringo says here that it was the press. I think it was either the press or management decided to make this rivalry because it sells records and it makes good stories, and that's what people like to have, good stories, and, you know, have some sort of rivalry. It makes things a bit more fun. Are you a Stones fan or are you a Beatles fan? I think that we've learnt that Yoko didn't break up the Beatles. They were going their own way anyway. And I think this whole thing about Yoko was because, I mean, you have to realise that the people who are fans of the Beatles, their dads probably fought in the Second World War, which hadn't been that long ago, by the 60s. So you're talking about 20 years ago, roughly. So living memory, and because she was Japanese, I believe she's Japanese. Because of that, I think that it was easy to pin it on her. So I think there was a little bit of racism that had been left over from the Second World War. But anyway, there you go, guys. I hope that you learned something. I certainly did. And I hope to see you soon on the next video. Take care of yourselves and have a nice day. You can also check me out on my other channel, Live Through Music. That will be in the description, along with the sources for the original videos. All the links for the original videos will be in the description.